Listen closely. This is the story people think they know, and the truths they don't. Stevie Wonder, the piano prodigy from Detroit, the voice of a generation, a man who made the world feel color with ears that never saw it. But behind the familiar hits, Isn't She Lovely, Superstition, You Are the Sunshine of My Life, lies a life cut by fire and stitched back together by sound. Tonight, I'll take you through the parts the tabloids skim and the record sleeves don't print. Names, wounds, triumphs, no sugarcoating, pure, hard truth. Born Steve Hardaway Judkins on May 13, 1950, a 6 weeks premature infant with lungs that needed oxygen, and paid the price in a blindness that doctors could not undo. Lula Mae Hardaway, mother, laundress, hymn singer, folded every small thing she had into one purpose: keep her children breathing and teach them to hear the world as if it were light. That lesson is the first miracle of this story. Detroit was cold, mean, hungry, but it was loud with gospel. Street organs, trains, and the metallic pulse of Motown waiting to be born. Stevie turned sound into geometry. By 9, he taught himself piano, harmonica, drums, all by ear. By 11, a street harmonica stopped Ronnie White of the Miracles cold. Berry Gordy heard the boy and whispered a name that would never leave him. That's a wonder. Little Stevie Wonder was shipped into the studio where the cardboard walls and rusty cables felt like a cathedral. Fragile hands. Relentless heart. The world applauded a child, but it did not yet understand the cost. At 13, Fingertips Part 2 detonated, the first #1 by a solo artist so young. But that child's soprano would crack with the quick cruelty of time. Suddenly, labels murmured, the crowds blinked, and whispers grew in the hallways. The wonder is over. Sylvia Moy refused that verdict. She pressed his hands back to the piano, and wonder roared into a rebirth. Everything's All Right wasn't a song. It was a comeback carved from shame and stubbornness. Then the headline that reads like an omen. August 1973, a steel beam through a windshield. Coma for 4 days. Will I ever hear music again, he asked when he woke. The world exhaled. He recovered, but the music that returned was different. Darker, more urgent, bearing the groove of someone who'd stared into an absolute void and refused to blink. Between 1972 and 1976, working like a man possessed, he made a suite of albums: Music of My Mind, Inner Visions, Talking Book, Fulfilling This's first finale, Songs in the Key of Life. Records that didn't just top charts, they changed how America listened. He played nearly every instrument, lived in the studio, borrowed against future royalties, and spent fortunes on sound experiments. Motown fretted. Critics called him mad. He called it truth. And history sided with him. Grammys piled up, sales exploded. A 3-album run no solo artist had ever matched. At the peak, he was making the kind of money few could imagine. Fortunes earned with blisters on his fingers, yet wealth never cured the old hungers. Fame brightens faces, but deepens alone rooms. The same hands that built a global empire also shook in exhaustion. Those who loved him knew applause wasn't the same as presence. He married, divorced, fathered children across decades. Names matter here because this audience wants faces and fallout. Sarita Wright, young love, fragile and true, parted in the heat of a skyrocketing career. Yolanda Simmons, a quiet caretaker who gave him Aisha and Kada. Lullabies turned into custody and distance. Kai Millard, designer, mother to Kaland and Mandla, a chapter of peace that ended quietly in separation. Tamika Bracey, later still, a teacher, a sanctuary in later life. Children born when the world thought his fathering days were done. These are not scandal headlines for sport. They are the proof. A genius's life ain't tidy. Love came, held him, left him, and sometimes, exhausted, walked out in the sound of a zipper. There were accusations and settlements in the shadows, battles the public smelled but rarely understood. He weathered them like he handled every other thing, with dignity, silence, and then a quieter song about forgiveness. He'd later admit, expectation is the killer of many a fine thing. Never forget Lula. She was the hands, the hymn, the unpaid bills, and the unsent trophies. She wrote lines on songs, but more importantly, she wrote the grammar of his soul. Listen first. Her death in 2006 broke him in ways stadiums never could. For weeks, he couldn't touch a piano. When he finally did, he played Ribbon in the Sky for her, a private requiem that the world never fully heard. Lula shaped every note he ever sang. Her absence turned his music quieter, more prayerful. Time is honest. By his 60s, the cumulated cost, a life on the road, the 1973 injury, decades of nonstop giving, showed up as a body asking for mercy. Kidney failure, a transplant. He announced a donor. He claimed grace. He held the public's hand without pleas for pity. After surgery, his first question, "Am I still here?" And the reply, "You never left." That exchange is the real headline. Gratitude, not defiance. Today, no more marathon tours. Studio lights down. A life retuned to small rhythms. Breakfast with children. Short walks. The piano in the garden. He's not less wonder. He's wiser wonder. Yes, the man amassed wealth. Estimates near 200 million. Mansions in Bel Air and Calabasas. Cars and watches fit for museums. But the true ledger reads different. Millions given quietly to scholarships, support for the blind, disaster relief, and music education. He helped birth We Are the World. He took the Presidential Medal of Freedom. His net worth tells one story. His philanthropy tells another. The message: he turned personal darkness into public light. Why should this matter to you, especially if you grew up hearing his records on vinyl? If you remember the summer a Stevie song filled the radio, because his life is an instruction manual for endurance. He shows a generation that bolted through hard times, that dignity isn't loud. It's a quiet, stubborn thing. Choose creation over complaint. Keep making art even when the applause stops. And never confuse fame with being present. Tonight when you hear "Isn't She Lovely?" or "Higher Ground," don't just let it play. Hear the friction behind it. The infant in an incubator, a mother's hands red from work, a man thrown into a coma, marriages that burned and cooled, lawsuits that scraped at dignity, surgeries that reminded him how fragile the body is. Hear all that, and then listen for the decision he made again and again, to turn hurt into him, to make music that teaches people to feel. If Stevie Wonder's story moved you, if the ache and the glory together left something warm in your chest, do something old-fashioned. Press like, leave a heart, tell a friend, not for the fame, for the man who taught us that sight is secondary and listening is everything. And when you walk away tonight, take one small line into your life. Gratitude is the final song. Play it loud enough that it drowns the silence. Stevie Wonder is still here. Not perfect, not untouched, but still here. And that alone is almost a miracle.